thought, what do I have from my unique experience, my unique perspective, that would actually maybe be valuable to everybody? And so we noodled on a couple of things and landed on vendor evaluations. Better tips for vendor evaluations. You're all probably going to buy technology at some point, right? If you've done it before, you know it can be a daunting task. Evan Perkins, I'm here with BigCommerce. I will introduce those things in a moment, but I wanted to introduce the topic first. So, full transparency, somebody from BigCommerce reached out and they said, Evan, do you want to speak at this event DCKAP's putting on? I'm like, oh yeah, awesome. I like to speak. I like the microphone. Love DCKAP. Let's do it. So I commit myself without doing any other research, and then I get on the website to check out the speakers, my peers, and I look through this list and I immediately think, oh my God, what have I done? We've got like the head of product, marketing, and technical content at Adobe, this president of Estes Group, 25 years in hybrid cloud solutions. There's CEOs, there's VPs. I'm like, I don't belong here at all. One of these things is not like the other. So I was fumbling around a bit thinking, nobody wants to hear me talk about composable commerce or technology or anything, given that at my very root, I'm a sales guy. So I thought, what do I have from my unique experience, my unique perspective, that would actually maybe be valuable to everybody? And so we noodled on a couple of things and landed on vendor evaluations. Better tips for vendor evaluations. You're all probably going to buy technology at some point, right? If you've done it before, you know it can be a daunting task, right? Like sometimes it takes forever to get connected to the right team at a vendor, to actually talk to somebody real person, especially the right person. Sometimes legal tanks everything. You always wonder, how do I get the best price? Right? How do I negotiate the best possible terms for myself? So I've been selling technology for 12 years, usually SaaS applications. I was in the Atlassian world. I've been in digital marketing. I've now been in the e-commerce space for a long time. So I've I've helped thousands of potential customers evaluate not only BigCommerce, but interrelated technologies like ERPs and PIMs. And I've seen these like patterns of behavior, right? These particular things that people do that make for a really effective, really efficient buying process. So, gonna share those things. We're gonna do 4 practical tips. Are they all brilliant? Not really. Are they all super novel? Not really. But I guarantee you they're actually from the field. Again, really practical, and you're gonna be able to use one of these, the next time you have to evaluate some technology and make a purchase. Little introduction, Evan Perkins. Manage the mid-market sales team at BigCommerce. I've been around, Austin for about a decade. So I was an early adopter of the coolness of Austin. And native Texan, proud to say that. And I help BigCommerce manage, again, the mid-market team. But I've been around for about over 5 years now. Most of that time has been in an individual contributing sales rep role. So I'm a sales guy. Most recently, I spent 3 years on our large enterprise team, so working with some of the more kind of household names, which tend to relate to a higher degree of complexity. But again, gone through a ton of these evaluations, and some of them have gone really, really well. Like I have one guy from Fargo who still invites me every year to his company holiday party, which is like super sweet. Some of them have been awful and been tremendous dumpster fires. So again, really real-life tips. This is stuff that I'm like, oh, I've picked up on some things people are doing, and they'll be useful, I hope. So real quick introduction to BigCommerce. We are a SaaS e-commerce platform. So SaaS is software as a service. Basically, we provide all the technology you need to build and maintain an online store. And because we're SaaS, it means we're fully hosted, so we're managing ultimately the code base. We're doing updates. We're protecting you from DDoS attacks and managing PCI compliance. So basically taking all of the IT burden off businesses. We'll host the application, manage that, and let you focus on what you do best, which is your business, right? You've all got some kind of secret sauce. We want you to be able to focus on that and leave the technology, some of that boring stuff to us. And when you think about BigCommerce, the one association to make, or the one thing to remember, is this concept of open SaaS. So Open SaaS, what we mean by that, it's the openness and flexibility of an open source platform, but packaged in a SaaS application, right? And those things kind of used to be at odds, like the ability to handle a complex business within a SaaS environment. Those used to be at odds, right? Used to be maybe 10 years ago, even 5, 6 years ago, as long as your business could kind of fit into the constructs of a SaaS application, you would be fine. But it meant your business had to be pretty simple. And with BigCommerce, we've opened everything up. We're an API-first platform, so deep integrations into ERPs and PIMs and payment solutions and tax solutions, but a lot of extensibility and flexibility with what you do with it on both the front end. So we've got a fully baked CMS. You could choose to deploy in a headless fashion if you wanted to do that. We've got a GraphQL layer and all the technology to make that happen. But that's kind of the open SaaS concept, right? Marrying the best parts of SaaS with the flexibility to handle a complex business. So I'll be around most of the day if you want to chat, and then I'll have my my contact information at the end of this. So let's dive in. Okay, evaluating a vendor. How do you do that well? Let's start with getting connected. When it comes to getting connected to a vendor, you want to make an entrance, meaning if you've wanted to go explore a new technology, you can always hop on the vendor's website and fill out that contact form. That's fine. I'm not knocking it. Some of those work really well. Some companies do this really well. They're very well organized. But if you've done it before, sometimes it takes a while to get a response. Sometimes you don't get a response at all if they're in like a really busy area or busy time. And I think there's a better way to get connected to the right team, because oftentimes that's what happens too, right? You get connected, there's some kind of like an intake team, so you have to schedule a call. They ask you some sort of basic qualifying questions. Then you get another call set up to actually get connected, maybe to a rep or a technical person to start getting questions answered. So how do you kind of skip the line and get in really quick? A couple of ideas. Number one, leverage a partner introduction whenever possible. So this kind of idea is basically when you engage a vendor, you become a lead in their system. Probably not a shock to anybody, right? And all vendors rank their leads. They literally like score them, stack rank them, cold, warm, hot, 1 through 10, whatever it is. But the important note there is all leads are not created equal, right? So filling out that contact form on a vendor's website isn't going to get you that super hot lead status right away. And the hottest leads are going to get the highest quality response. They're going to get the fastest response. You probably do this in your business as well, right? And so when you can leverage a partner introduction, you kind of skip the line. It's a bit of a cheat code. Look, if Karthik from DCKAP pings me and says, hey, Evan, I'm working with this customer. They want to learn about BigCommerce. I'm going to jump all over it, right? My team's going to jump all over it because presumably a lot of that qualification work's been done. I know this is a real person. It's a real business. They've got a real project. If nothing else, DCKAP's a great partner, and they're asking me to, reach out to somebody. I'm not going to drop the ball, so I'm going to jump all over it. So that's a really great way, I think, to again kind of skip the line. Again, not knocking the intake forms or the drift chats or whatever the case is. Those can be really useful. But next time you're thinking about evaluating a technology, think through your ecosystem. What technology partners do you have? What agency partners do you work with? Who could you reach out to get an introduction? And you'll skip the queue, save yourself some time. Okay, what if you don't know anybody? Become a sales rep. Put your sales rep hat on and start stalking people on LinkedIn. So I've seen people do this a ton. It works really well. Get on LinkedIn, look up the company, find a VP of like North America sales or wherever you're located, and just reach out to them. Hi, my name's Evan. I'm with BigCommerce. We have 1,600 employees. We're located in Austin. I want to talk to you about your solution. That VP might not get on the phone with you, although I think they should. But at the very least, they're going to hand that information to the right rep on their team. That rep's going to jump all over it. Why? Because their boss just told them to. So you instantly got that like hot lead status right away. And you've got some executive oversight in the organization. So again, I think you'll get a little more white glove service. So try these things. Next time you're going to try to get connected with the vendor. And again, I think you'll be better off, some more efficient results. The next one I'll introduce with this famous quote: the RFP process produced the most tailored, efficient, and well-informed decision possible. It was definitely not a huge waste of time. Said no one ever. The next tip, skip the RFP. If you can skip the RFP, do it. Look, some of you I know have corporate rules kind of governing how you evaluate. You've got to do the RFP. But if you can skip the formal process, I think there's a better way to go about it. Because what it tends to do is be very impersonal. You kind of huck this document over the fence. You're asking for responses. There's a lack of context. And I'll give you another little insider tip. Most vendors have RFP response teams, okay? So there's a group, it may be one person, it may be multiple, but this group takes an RFP, they know nothing about it, and they start copy-pasting in answers from oftentimes a shared database or previously completed RFPs, right? And I don't think that's the best way to get answers to questions you have. It's like me asking my doctor about, hey, via email, like, can you help me with this rash, like on my leg? Like, well, I don't know, maybe. There's a lot of information the doctor probably needs. Not the most useful way to do it. So, couple of ideas. Absolutely start with creating a wish list of requirements. You should have some kind of document tracking. What do you need the solution to do? What are you looking for? If you can get that into a Google Sheet, I think even better, because you can start kind of monitoring in real time how that's getting completed. And then once you've got that, schedule a time to discuss. Schedule a time. You should have made the right entrance. You're working with the right team. Get with the sales rep. They'll have some technical SME they can drag into the discussion, but talk through it. And I made this point actually once before, and somebody was like, "Hey, dummy, this sounds a lot like an RFP process. Like, what are you doing? You're not reinventing the wheel here." But I think the real trick or the real differentiator here is it is personalized, right? So maybe we rework this one. We don't hit on RFPs, but just say personalize the RFP process. Because finally, you're going to ask the vendor, can you map capabilities to this requirements doc? But if you've scheduled time, you've discussed it, you've given them the context that they need, you're a real person now, it's a real project, you're not only going to get an RFP response team, you're going to be dealing with a sales group, they're going to have architects that are looking at it, you're going to get much higher quality, highly contextualized, meaningful to you responses. And I think it'll be something that produces a lot better results than, again, the traditional kind of huck it over the fence. So skip the RFP, skip the formal RFP, personalize the RFP. We could box this up a few different ways, but just try to follow this kind of basic outline here when you're getting requirement stocks filled out. I have no idea how I'm pacing, so we'll just assume things are going well. All right, next tip. Everybody's favorite group to deal with next to HR is your legal team, right? Legal teams are super fun. But love them or hate them, we're stuck with them. They keep us safe. We got to learn to work with them. So how do you get ahead of legal? And please note, this isn't like get around legal or sneak and trick legal. I'm sincerely like, how do we just help the legal process go through? Because I cannot tell you the number of times we've had like a 3, 4, 6 month evaluation cycle. I'm working with somebody and they say, oh, this is great. Let's move forward. Everybody's on board. The whole business is on board. Send me a contract. I'll get it signed right away. It's going to be awesome. And then it just completely tanks in the legal process because maybe the customer didn't know that they have to get uncapped liabilities in like all these different areas and arbitration has to be done out of Singapore. And they're like, is that okay? I'm like, nope, that's not okay. We're not going to agree to that. Thanks, though. So there are some things you can do to get ahead and some gotchas to watch out for. First one, ask the question, is this possible? Is this even possible? It sounds trite. I actually looked up this data. So over the last, I guess it's been about 2.5 years, I've had 8 situations where somebody calls me and they're like, hey, Evan, I need to evaluate BigCommerce. I have to go really, really fast because, truth be told, I was actually working with your competitor. I chose your competitor. We got to the finish line, and I realized they would not allow us to make any changes to their agreement. Right? Like they just want me to sign shrink-wrap terms, and my legal team will not do it. They won't do it. And so they've wasted, again, months in an evaluation of a platform they could never actually purchase, a technology they could never purchase anyway. So ask this question. And I would ask it on both sides, right? Start with the vendor you're working with. Early in the process, ask, what does your contracting look like? Can my legal team suggest changes? Can they make red lines to the document? Or again, do you want me to sign shrink-wrap terms? If the latter, it could totally be cool. but it might not be, right? If they tell you one way or the other, you can go back to your legal team and say, hey, is this okay? And then if they say absolutely not, go away, you can do that and you realize, hey, I've got to work with another vendor or find some kind of a workaround. So ask the is this possible question. Don't get into a situation where you kind of waste the entire cycle because it never could have happened anyway. And then the second point on this one, understand the common points of sensitivity. So the little bit about arbitration in Singapore was a real story, by the way. I had that in an agreement this calendar year, so that was interesting. They did allow us to do it in English, so that was nice. So it had to be in Singapore, but in English. We still didn't want to go for it. Common points of sensitivity. Your organization might have similar types of quirks, right? Stuff that you should know about ahead of time. So you can start engaging with the rep you're working with or the team you're working with at the vendor you're evaluating and start trying to come up with creative solves for that, right? Common points of sensitivity I've seen, liability caps, like how much coverage do we need on some kind of a data breach issue, right? Or can we even work off a vendor's paper? Most of the time the selling party is going to furnish the contract. They have kind of their wrap around the product they're selling. Sometimes not. Sometimes organizations, maybe some that you work for, are like, nope, we use our own paper. We have, our own contracts, and you've got to sign up with those. Again, I'm not saying these things are deal breakers. It's just stuff you need to know early in the process so you can kind of mitigate against having everything tank once you're at the end. Other thing that this is kind of a bonus. I didn't put it on the slide. I had a guy do this to me last year. And it was a really good idea. So he says, we get to the end. He managed IT and had a leg in marketing. So he's a really, he was like the champion at he could get the deal done right. He had budget, everything, but he knew I have to get it through legal. He worked at a reasonably sized company. And he said, Evan, send me a contract. And then if you could do me a favor and just bullet point out in the email you send over all the most commonly redlined areas to your agreement, because I want to get ahead of it on my side. And I did it. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So here's the things, people tip. And so what I realized after the fact is this guy just got all the negotiation points out of me in one fell swoop, right? If it's the most common items, we probably have workarounds, we probably have solves. These are probably areas that we can negotiate. So he was understanding from, the vendor side, hey, what are your common points of sensitivity? And I stole that phrase from a lawyer, by the way, so it's totally legit. If you don't know kind of how to ask this of your legal team, phrase it this way. I think they'll appreciate you. Again, not trying to trick anybody, not trying to get ahead in a bad way. We're just trying to sort of grease the skids, make our legal counsel's lives easier, and avoid this pitfall of, I go through this whole multi-month cycle and then realize we can't even do this to begin with. All right, last point. This is about pricing. And my whole deal about pricing, and I think this is universally true, is timing is everything. Timing is everything. You want to get the best possible deal for yourself. Your strongest card is not if, it's when. It's not if you're going to buy a particular kind of technology, it's when you're going to buy it. So sales reps, as you may know, are around to create revenue for their organizations. They need to create predictable patterns of revenue. So the whole point is they've got a quota. They've got to generate a certain amount of money in a particular time frame, in a particular time period, right? This is universally true. Sales teams do this differently. Reps are measured differently. So some are on monthly quotas, some are on quarterly quotas, some annual. But it's really, really useful to understand what kind of construct you're working with, right? What's the context? What is important to that rep? So ask the question, hey, how do you get measured? Ask the rep how they get measured. You start to get a feel for what's important to them. If they're on a quarterly quota and you're in the third month of a quarter, it may not be fiscal or calendar, those two things are different, so understand that. Then you know where you can start kind of poking the bear and getting the best deal for yourself. If you want to go pro on this, ask the question, how are you tracking against that? How far along? If they've hit their number, they may not really care. They may not really need the business. If they're starving to death, well, that's great. They'll make a lot of concessions. So figure out how to get, how that rep is measured, and you'll be amazed at the kind of concessions that you can get out of people, right? So ask that question, leverage it to get the best possible deal. There's always, more user seats or free training or whatever the case is. Like, and I'm telling on myself, like this is uncomfortable when people do this to me, but it's 100% true. Understand this piece. The other trick, if you tell a rep, I'm going to sign this by the end of the quarter. They're going to go tell their boss, hey, I got this deal in the bag. It's going to work. And then they're committed. Like, they've committed to the business, right? So then it's time to go back to them and start asking for some concessions here. And it works really, really well. So do these things. Bonus, clear timelines are going to save you a whole lot of headaches. So it's totally fine to evaluate something and not want to buy it right away, right? But you got to be clear about that, or you're going to get hounded. People are going to be trying to push you through their sales cycle and, close down the business, or however you want to phrase it. If it's, again, totally fine. If somebody calls me up and says, I'm not going to purchase this thing till next year, that's great. I'm going to show love. I'm going to go through the process. And then I know I'll just bucket this, way down in the pipe. Nobody's going to bother me about it as a rep. I might get asked about it, but it's not going to be like a big, hey, I committed to the business or anything. So be clear about that, and you'll save yourself some headache. All right, again, I forgot my Apple Watch. So I have literally no, maybe it's an hour. Yeah, sweet. So we can do some Q&A, but we'll do a quick review. So tip 1, make an entrance. There's a right way to get connected. There's a good path to get the right team right away. So leverage a partner introduction whenever you can. Stalk people on LinkedIn. It's very effective. Personalize the RFP process if you can avoid the super formal, impersonal, and really provide good context. You're going to get way better, way higher quality responses. Third, get ahead of legal. Ask the is this possible question. Understand those common points of sensitivity, both with the vendor and with and your own organization. You can save yourself some headaches. And then timing is everything. You want to get the best possible deal. Understand how your rep works, how they get paid, and you can play into that big time. Thanks a ton. I'm around today again. If you want to talk, contact information up there. I was told we can take Q&A. If anybody wants to do that, are there exciting questions you want to ask? I'll tell you anything about the hardest deal of my life. Man, that's a great question. The hardest deal of my life. Gee. The Singapore one's not done. Yeah, so we're still working through that. Maybe that's it. It's not done yet. They said we want to do this back in February. We're still, oh gosh, hardest deal. I'll tell you the dumbest thing I did. So when I first moved to the large enterprise team, some of this language was new to me. And I was working with a pharmaceutical company, I will not name from stage, and we get to the very end, and the guy calls me. I sent him the contract. We've gone back and forth, red lines a few times. And the guy calls me up, and he's like, hey, just one change from my end, and I think, and we're good to go. I just need, basically, you're hosting the technology, and so if we get sued because of problems you create, we need you to cover us, with like no limits, right? I think that's fair. And I didn't really understand the situation. I was furrowing my brow in an attempt to understand the words. I hadn't done this before. This is a multi-billion-dollar global pharmaceutical group who said, all you got to do is cover all my legal expenses forever. And I said, hey, yeah, that sounds reasonable. I'll see what we can do. That's great. So we hang up. I give them false hope, and I go to my legal team, and they sit me down, and they're like, that's cute, little boy. Let me tell you how the world works and why we can't agree to go uncapped on legal fees. So not necessarily the hardest deal, but maybe the dumbest thing I've done in that context. Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we got that one done, for sure. Had to eat some words. BigCommerce will go uncapped in certain areas of fraud and willful misconduct. So it provides some people some comfort. So, yeah, we got that one done. Thanks. That's great. Anything else? Because I think we have time. Any other questions? Yeah, in the back there. Oh, nope, she was, I think, waving some number of minutes. It's very bright, and you can't see in the back of this theater. Any questions about Austin? I used to live, you could hit a golf ball to my house, my first house from here. Oh, yeah. Man, I am not a great, so I love barbecue. I am like a child. I will eat, I'll go out on the town and eat at Uchi, which is like a really fancy. You're like $300 in for the night, right? It's a celebration type place. And on the way home, I will stop at Taco Bell and like get a few tacos and fill up. So I'm kind of like a rich teenager in how I eat. I like Franklin's a lot. I've never stood in line as a native Austinite. I've never stood in line. Because when you live here, people order it in, and you just get to eat it at like parties and stuff and not wait in line. If you're visiting, it is a cool experience. One time, Bill Murray showed up. That was kind of neat, and he's gabbing at people in the line. One time, Obama showed up, and he cut, which was a jerk move, but then he paid for everyone's barbecue for the whole day, which means you paid for it because it's tax dollars. So that was too bad. Oh. Red flags. Ooh. Yeah, I didn't actually say any of my red flags either because I'm doing this noteless. So I'll give you two sections, two answers. On the vendor side, if you're evaluating a vendor and you say, hey, I've got this RFP or I've got this requirements doc, and they say, no, thanks, we don't fill those out, I would probably look elsewhere. These are complicated purchase decisions, and if somebody's unwilling to meet you at all and discuss requirements or formally fill out anything, that's no good. Red flags for me from buyers. I'm always on the lookout for skunkworks projects. If you're familiar with this, this is relatively new to me. Skunkworks meaning it's somebody like sitting in the org who got bored and they don't really have anything to work on, and so they're like, oh, what if we, made like this whole internet thing at my company? And those can be fun conversations, but typically the Skunkworks projects don't have buy-in from like the board or the executive staff. And so you can spend a whole lot of time basically training somebody what is e-commerce, and then they can't ever actually purchase it to begin with. If you're mean, there's a quip, people buy from people they like. People sell to people they like. Or they sell to people they don't like. They just make deals with people they do like. This is a human interaction. We're all human beings. There's a lot of like salespeople are liars and they're cheats and they eat at Taco Bell all the time. If you're nice to someone, like I'm really walking around the barn here. If somebody's really rude, really mean, I question like how far can we get with this? Because there's going to be contention in an evaluation, like whether it's legal or it's pricing or it's requirements and there's customizations like needed. There's going to be stuff you have to work through. And if somebody's just really super rude up front or super know-it-all and they don't want to learn, they don't want to take any advice, they don't think you can teach them anything or you can open their minds up, that can be a red flag to me as something that I'm like, I don't know that we want to deal with this. I don't always have the freedom to be like, call somebody else, idiot. But those are some red flags that I look for. Think if there's any other big ones. Red flags. Yeah, I guess those. Oh, last one I'll say. This happens all the time, especially the further down market you go, so like smaller businesses, they'll be like, yeah, I want to get on this whole internet thing. I got this great idea, and I want the site to work a lot like, have you ever been to Amazon? Have you ever been to Amazon? Like, I want it to work like that. Like, so there, it's this like amazingly complex, like Bezos has like 300 developers just on checkout alone. So those people also tend to have about $200 to spend, and it's hard to recreate an Amazon-esque experience with a very limited budget. So those are things I guess I look out for. But I try to help, obviously going to try to help everybody. Well, any other questions? Oh, a joke. Nope. I have lots of those. I don't know what's appropriate anymore. Seinfeld has a whole thing about like not doing colleges, and I don't know. I'm not sure what you can say anymore at all. So the meanest thing I've heard from a client. Wow, that's a good one too. We were working with a partner on the West Coast, and this wasn't of me, so maybe it sounds unfair to share. Partner brings us a lead. So they're doing good, right? Immediately get transferred to a very veteran rep on my team. Like, this person they do a great job. They're awesome. Rarely do they get a complaint. So this person, trying to be very ambiguous, this person picks up the phone, has a discussion with the customer. The partner is involved. They talk for like an hour, so it's like the discovery call, right? Hang the phone up. Like 20 minutes later, this person gets a phone call. It's the partner. And basically they're like, hey, listen, they really like BigCommerce. They said that you were weird. So can we work with somebody else maybe? And this person had to pass off the whole deal because they're like, you're weird. I don't want to work with you, which is a very strange thing to say just from an hour-long business conversation. But I thought that was pretty mean. That was a little mean. Yeah. Oh, thumbs up. Yep. Another question.
What happens, or how do you maneuver when you got too many cooks in the kitchen? That happens when you use the tech partner, agency, variety of people need to sign off from the buyers, and anyone has to help you.
Yeah, so the question basically is how do you deal with multiple stakeholders in an organization? That can be tough. That's really what separates. We have sort of 3 selling units, if you will, at least in North America. We have a small business team, a mid-market team, and a large enterprise team. And small business and mid-market, a lot of the times you're dealing with owner-operators or smaller teams, so there's fewer cooks in the kitchen. The large enterprise especially, you have to start managing through, there's like IT's on the one side, marketing's over here, you've got an e-com person. The best way, I guess 2 pieces of advice. One, what we started doing, my SE and I, was creating a Google Sheet, a shared Google Sheet that we would serve as like the parking lot, if you're familiar with that concept. We drop questions in. We would do this live on calls as people were asking questions. Maybe we weren't able to answer them in real time. But you want to catalog every single interaction that you have, all the questions that are asked, all the goals, everything. Catalog those, make that shareable, make that very visible, and that helps to sort of bring people together around, okay, number one, this BigCommerce has gone through a lot with us. They've answered a ton of questions. That's a good thing. Number 2, everybody can sort of see throughout a series of phone calls all the stuff that's been dealt with. Maybe they missed out. I said I'd give you 2 things, and now I don't remember what the other one is. But that shared Google Doc is, as a rep, you've got to do a good job kind of corralling everybody, and typically I feel that happens best with individual discussions. So if the CIO is involved, like have a track where you're talking the CIO stuff. If marketing's involved, have another track where you're trying to sort of independently influence different groups. And that starts with learning what is important. What's important to the marketing team may be totally different to what's important to the IT team. But they have to live together and work together and do a good job. So that would be my advice. I guess that's more to other sales reps. But if you have random people calling you asking for your unique input, maybe you're part of a complicated, large organization. Okay, they're waving me off now. Thank you.